All right, so we're going to begin with, I call this the upper respiratory addition. So we're starting with horizontal chest opener of choice. So some of us have other versions that we do. So as we're setting up here, you want to have your block under the back of your pelvis. So the block is not like just here, it's really forming a foundation. And then the rib area is going to be on the bolster. Okay, but play with it a little bit, like meaning this is an outline of how you attempt to open up the respiratory muscles. And people have different versions of it off of this outline. So we'll start, and I just kind of lightly lie back with my tailbone on the block. And then when I recline, kind of shimmy the rib spaces down, which is actually kind of interesting. And then I feel like I need to go a little bit further down to the block so that I can assign my muscles, right? I can feel the respiratory muscles get this assignment. I also really enjoy the back space, trying to get that deep touch. Okay. So my knees are going to stay pointed up for a little bit of time. And then I'm going to grab my sandbag and apply that sand to where it feels supportive. Now, something on you is going to feel different than something below you, meaning that you can adjust what's on top, right? A little easier. But your body has to adjust to what's under it. So it takes some time to associate. I think of it as having a conversation with your props, right? Because that's kind of your main information feedback field in this class. So it could be on the hips. So when I let my legs stretch down, then I like how that feels on the thigh lids, or it could be a little bit higher for you. But don't let it take your breath away. So if the sanding makes it feel like you're just holding back, then it probably should go a little bit lower. Okay. And then even if the knees point up for some time, because we're just kind of dropping in to the sensations. You want to stretch your arms, opening the chest and widening that doorway into the lungs. The blanket could be two folded. I'm going to go down to one because this just gives me a little bit more passage of flow to my throat, to my jaw. But it's up to you. If you feel better with more height, then you take more height. But find what allows you to feel that you can center back and change the circulation conversation internally. Okay. That doesn't mean you have to create more compression in your back by straightening your legs. Some people that just causes too much compression. So what I'm trying to work on is opening up the ribs, kind of like this bridge here, right? Opening up the ribs so that helps my back. I think that just takes a lifetime to figure out in the world of body work. It's like, well, if your back hurts, you need opening the front. So let the arms span open and give yourself the opportunity to search out, should the soles of the feet be together, the knees apart? Should the knees point up or point in or extend down? And then once you find your centering spaces, which continue to shift with each breath, right? Kind of setting your intention for this practice, settling within, and maybe closing your eyes. If you're fortunate to have an eye pillow, that can be quite comforting. Just arriving with the shoulders back and the chest open. Feeling both the spine areas, the muscles along the spine starting to extend and wake up, and the front spaces. And make sure that the back of your skull is not turning side to side. You can feel where the neck is creating just the right amount of length, right? Maybe you can feel the back of your head push. See if you can find a dimension where you're settling in or you're settling on the back of the skull. Okay, now before we shift into an inversion, this is kind of our beginning sequencing to kind of change the circulation flows internally in a pretty big, it's significant impact on healing. So you want to make sure throat is comfortable, meaning two blankets might start to make it a little more challenging in your throat. So you want some spaciousness here in the throat. It doesn't mean when we push back and we put our pelvis on the bolster that there's more pressure in the throat. So make sure that's just a little bit, a sliver of blanket. You might even slide it back and make it a little lower once we get there. And bring the feet in so the knees point upwards, right? So the soles of the feet on the ground, and even feel how you rock back into the lower back area. So a little caution here. You want to still feel that arch. I mean, that's important, right? To feel the lumbar curve. You want to feel that where you notice the pelvis or the tailbone just lands. And then just above that is the curve. So we remove the sand and we grab a hold. I find I'm trying to learn how to get into this without a lot of extra efforting, right? With pushing. And so seeing if I can get rid of that one blanket. I'm going to push my blanket back a little bit. And then I'm going to make it so the fold is just a little bit lower under my head, right from my back of my skull, the occiput. So right above the brainstem is where my blanket base is, right there. And then I don't want to push back any further because I'll slide on the blanket. Walk the feet in, and then you're going to bring the bolster down a little bit. Okay, I did push back a little bit. So make this perfect, right? So you want to find, okay, now I still feel this openness in my ribs, but now I'm landing on the bolster entirely. And then bring the right leg in and keep the left knee pointing up and hold the back of that right thigh and stretch the left leg down. I guess the word stretch is probably a little too intense, but just relax the left thigh straight down so you can start to feel some sense of awareness in the psoas and just begins in the front kind of rim of the bones and down into the quad a little bit. It's going to take time to, just beginning to introduce that sensation into the front of the body. But we started with it with the chest opener. We already have some awareness there. We're just going to start to layer into it a little deeper. Okay. And then just switch sides. So left leg, I just bring it in besides, and then I'll let the right leg lower down. Okay. So some of this practice is how do we deliver, right, the information internally. And of course, you have different organs on this side. So you might notice the leg draws in easier. You might notice it's all what you think of as all the muscle response, but there's other areas in you that will respond to this drawing of the knee in, the mystery of the organs. Okay. So the organs are calling for a little pressure at the back and the kidney. So what we're going to go with is just to draw the right leg in. Bring the right foot off the floor so the knees are both in. Relax your grip on the back. Make sure you're far enough down on that bolster. You might even feel just a little titch of the block unless you got rid of it. And then grab your belt and let's take a belt so we're going to buckle it up so it's in a big loop. If you've decided not to do this on the bolster, that's okay. There's no pose police. So if you don't want to use your bolster, you can still do the whole program. So although it's nice with everything's better with a bolster. Okay, so the feet are going to push into the loop. So you're going to just decide in the beginning by having them together because they like to hang out together. But notice when you go far with that movement of your feet, And my loop is kind of small, but I think I'm going to go with this. This feels like just the right amount, not too, so it's not too shaky. Okay, and that doesn't mean that something's wrong with you if your legs are shaky. I mean, you don't hang upside down very often. So here you are, you're doing it today. So with the legs reaching, notice if it's a hip movement. Something I'm kind of curious about. So go back to the feet together and back out. Am I moving out of my leg muscles? I mean, your pelvis owns your legs, but it's pelvis hip movement out. Okay, so you can bend the knees a bit. You can try to move your hips, but see if you can find just a balance of weight of the thighs resting into the hips. They basically rest into the pelvis, which is same. So open out the arms. If you want to use a sandbag, I think it's a lot of extra input feedback wise in the body. It's nice to kind of go focus on the reverse effects of gravity on the heart, lungs, and brain. Simple. Okay. So the knees can, again, they can straighten if you like that feeling. But if I find if I push out and try to straighten my legs, I get a little shaky. So finding just that right balance. Let your eyes close, in leg float, and breathe slow. And just finding where the balance is in your tailbone. Are you moving the legs back over, or can you keep them up and out, and find what movement is right for you? I don't mean you have to move in this shape, but do you like to hinge at the hips more and move the legs slightly back? And just notice what works for you. Right? You have to have your own signature on this one. Okay. And once you've found your kind of end range, right? This is where I'm going to land. Then notice the abdominal motions with the breath, the belly breathing, the expansion, and the emptying. So that's the movement of the lungs, that's the movement of the diaphragm, and the massage into the organs. And now, as we bend the knees a little bit more, reach up. You pretty much have to have your arms reaching to get their belt, pretty much. I think it's hard to get out of this without your hands. So, as you bend the knees into more of a happy baby pose, the knees are kind of out. They don't have to turn out, but they're reaching down towards your body. And then you're going to pull the belt so the legs go back up straight and in. Okay. Now, once you're here, we're going to get prepped for brain float. So this is, I kind of like to go in this order sometimes. So I focus first on the whole back line of the body, kind of the deep back line. So from my hamstrings, just think whole back, whatever is the back line of your body. Okay. This goes all the way up to my shoulders. So if I bend my knees a little bit and draw the legs back, I know some of you like this and you've even been advised to do this, and some of us have not. Depends on what your spine condition is, right? So if you have stenosis, right, it'd be a good thing to do some forward folds, but some of us, not so much. So if that's something you know is good for you, you might grab the belt and just feel the knees drawing back, and it might just feel like what a relief that is. Okay. And then for some of us, we'll have the legs straight up. So I want you to lower the left leg down in any event. We're going to start to move into brain float. So the left leg is reaching. And then I'm going to grab my sandbag, just leave my belt on my right foot, and apply that to the front of the left thigh, straight on down to the top. Okay. And then take that loop, which is probably too small now, because I certainly don't want to stress out my neck. So I'm going to loosen it and then just do a little measurement of if I have my foot straight up vertical and I place the belt towards the crown of my head, does it reach without pulling my leg back, further? That's about it. So I want to find it just that length. That works really good for me. So I bring the belt to the center of the back of my skull. Okay, a little bit higher for some of us. I'm not saying you're doing it incorrectly, but feel free to just make sure the belt is not on your neck. That's key. And if this doesn't work well for you, if you're not enjoying this perspective at all, you can also take the belt in your hands and reach overhead. So I'd have the belt between the webbing of my thumb and index fingers. And I really like that. I like both. I think I prefer brain float just for the traction in my neck, but because there's not much else I do for that. You know, I can do things reaching my arms throughout the rest of the class, but this is a little bit particular for this pose for the neck. But let your head lean back. Don't feel like you have to pull with your right foot. You can let your head lean back and you can loosen up the belt. You can tighten it up. You're prescribing your intensity, right? So if it's a hamstring reaching, where do you feel it? It's a great time to have a conversation with these parts because you might not have these hamstring conversations during the rest of the day. Could be a calf situation. Okay, and then noticing how the hip points are. The right hip point might be really pulled up. So you want to feel that you can push into that right sitting bone. Right? It's kind of a special technique, I think. So we tend to think from the leg, like what we see physically. I see my leg, I pull my leg, but kind of feel right at the front of that right hip bone. Could you move that right sitting bone a little bit downwards? It's kind of like wagging your tail, like hiking your hip up and down. So working into the belly of the muscle on that right leg. And if none of this computes, it's okay. You can follow the formula just the same. Feeling the abdomen moving with the breath. You ever need to come out of it sooner? If anything feels too much pull, maybe it's just a shorter right side brain float for you. It's okay. Okay, now from the right leg brain float is what I mean. We're going to switch it to side two and maybe just push that sand off and hold the back of your skull. You might push the belt a little bit higher. I sometimes like to take it off my head, but this one feels okay. I'll bring my left foot up and then in the beginning, take that right leg out. You might shake it a little bit. It's your leg to shake. And then as you lower the foot and the leg reaching, take your time. Noticing even if bending the right knee, putting the sole of the foot down feels better. Doesn't mean that you can't do it that way as well. So if you feel like, oh, this is a game changer, not to straighten my leg, then maybe you try it that way sometimes. Okay. So feel when that right leg is reaching. Okay. Taking that sand again, you can hold the belt with your hands. No requirement that you have to have it around your head. It's not around the neck, it's around your head, right at the occiput. So feeling that traction, sometimes I'll loosen it up a little bit more. So my head kind of rests and hovers over the blanket. I kind of like that. Okay, but noticing the calf, the left leg, the back stream of the leg, that flow back into the hip and the pelvis. And the tone of the breath changes with this variety of shapes. Just slowly mapping the way gravity flows through the body. And even feeling the variety if you bend the left knee even just a titch. Connect to your breath. Notice the changes in the frame of the body. We kind of focus on the bones structurally. And we find an outline for changing circulation, and then we go inwards. Okay, now slide your hands inside of the belt. Take the belt off. Let your head lie back on the blanket. And then with the left hand holding the belt, you're going to slide the sand off the right thigh. Actually, let's see. Let's put the sand over on the left side. That's where we're going to need it in a little while. So sand goes left side. Okay. So I know all the equipment movement is a yoga practice on its own. Okay. So grabbing the belt with the right hand now, you're going to bend the left knee and kind of feel where the thigh is, where you're hinging at the hip, the back line of the leg, where the knee is bending. And I want you to bend the right knee, the bottom leg, slide that foot in. And so that right foot, you're going to kind of work onto the side of the foot, sickling the foot. Okay. So you're going to let that left leg cross over to the right, but the right leg is also hinging. You're reaching. So the bottom leg turns out and the top leg crosses over. Okay, we've done this many a time, I know, but just give yourself the freedom to lift your left rear. And if there's a wall near you, like me, I'm going to move over on my bolster. So I'm not like, preventing my full range. That is just with gravity. Yeah, what I like about these is you're just using gravity. And yes, there's resistance with the hand holding the belt, and you get to prescribe the intensity. You can bend the left knee, you can extend the leg. It's probably restricted. It's like, oh, it just only goes so far. So see if you can make peace with that. You'll have sensation the whole time. It's not just going to suddenly fade away when you get into the pose. Okay. It just doesn't do that. Sometimes the pose begins when you want to get out. I always like that comment in the class long ago. Like, okay, let's see what happens, what I can do to calm myself down. Some reason this is one of the shapes we do. The left arm is reaching to a direction that works for you, right? It could be straight out and a little lower. Okay. Could be above the shoulder. See what you can do that's softer for the shoulder and not that's forcing it. And it's probably just bending and resting. Okay. All the while, this left hip is wondering, when are we going to get out of this? Okay. So before we shift to side two, now that we're on the side band of the leg, which is, a little interesting with the nerve response, you can really feel it, the collections of energy. And then it kind of bulks up into the kind of into the hip, into the crevasse of the hip here. So when you come back up, bend the left knee, feel the knee pointing over to the right, not the whole leg, this whole leg straight, but bend the knee so you can try to reach from your hip to the knee on its own directionally. And then I'm going to bring the left foot in. I'm going to put that left foot to my right knee and come into figure four pose. So take the belt off. You might have to reassign your back on the bolster. You might not even want to be on a bolster for this. That's okay. So the left foot goes to the right knee into figure four. I like to call this reclining pigeon personally. Okay. And so as I stack the ankle to the knee, just above my knee, first things first here, opening up the other part of the hip, that inner line. And many of us might feel like, oh, I'm going to come into the full hinge and hold the back of my right thigh and pull a little bit. It's all up to you. Okay. You don't have to go this degree. If you feel like this is helpful with the foot on the floor. Yeah. Even flexing the left foot. And remember, you're the decider. And notice these little habits you get into when you bring your knees to your chest. I tend to tighten here when I bring the foot up, I grip. So my work is on, okay, lift up the right heel, use my lower abdominals, ugh, and then bring the knees in. So we get in these funny habits, these funny, quirky habits that end up making us kind of a little more tense. So just learning something about yourself in this one. Okay. Now the right leg could kick up if you're in this form. Not that this is the best one. Some of us, the foot's on the floor. Okay. And then when you're switching sides, give yourself a moment to step out of it. Okay. Right foot down, left foot down. And then as you bring the right knee in, we did this earlier when we clutched the back of the leg. But this time I want you just to get your belt under your foot. Now, this could cause the knees to push out, both of them, right? You notice these little habits. Most of it's because you're in a back bend this whole time. You're still in this back bend with the bolster. There's a lot of lumbar curve. So I got to get in the loop here. Got to get in the loop again. Think I like the loop. So left leg is down, bending the knee, left knee, slide the foot to the right. So you're on the side of that left foot as the right leg reaches to the left side. And you're welcome to hold it with both hands. I prefer just the opposite. So if my left hand's holding the belt that's around my right foot, that seems to be the right blend for me. So then my right arm can stretch open. And I can feel a difference from one side to the next. So I want to make sure, am I set up about the same on this side? Did I slide down the bolster? I want to make it same. As you're crossing over the right arm, and also your head rolls to the right. And just breathing. Okay, so feel where there's movement of breath. Don't feel like you have to just hang out in this shape if it's distracting parts of you, doesn't feel comforting. You can always back out of it and just see what goes on if I bend my right knee and then try to cross back over. You know, having that conversation with your lateral rotators is definitely worth it. Yeah, they get a lot of pressure all day, these side bands. We should just call them the side bands. Okay. All right. It's a treasure chest of energy, though, isn't it? That side of the leg. Okay. Now, when we come back to figure four, you know, sometimes it's good to have that awareness in your brain. Where are we going? So you have a visualization of how to get to it. Maybe you don't. Maybe you follow, have to watch it. But we are going to be working with the side band now, and then we're going to be turning the energy to the inner, but still the outer leg. So when I bring my right foot to the left thigh, right, I still have this awake. The side of the leg is still awake. Take the belt off and take your time with this knee open. Now, if you notice a distinct difference in your range of motion, which is really not abnormal if you've lived in your body for a while, these things will happen. You might even flip to that second side just to see, okay, my range of motion, how am I doing? Okay, and then start to move your left foot up and then feel the movement in. You know, I'm trying to find a way to get the foot up with this open, my lower abdominals engaging. So exhale and then bring the leg up. So what happens on that exhale? The diaphragm goes back up, down in the body. So kind of knowing those breath tips, I think is helpful. Where is the diaphragm moving? As I bring my leg in, this is a perfect time to move my legs towards my core is on the exhale. Okay. So if you're holding, this is an option. The leg can kick up Adding some points, inversion points to it. The leg is higher. I actually find that's a little more comfortable for my back when my leg goes up versus bending. But you might play with it. You might decide, I don't want to do this. I want my foot on the floor. Okay. But we're going to go towards the sage poses. So I want you to find the final parts of this time of inverting, right? To help lead the circulation in the middle body, the core, and breathe. Take a few more, maybe even closing your eyes, and just feel the collection of legs. And that collection of legs is there to support the circulation into the pelvis and into the kind of the core nest, right? The center of gravity. Okay, now let go of the back of the left thigh if you're holding it. And then as you lower down the left foot, take the time, right knee is out. Okay, we only have two sides. So when we come out of this one, I'm kind of contemplating how to keep that center of gravity, just moving the energy that goes down the body and then back up towards the brain, right? The center conductor. So we'll take a ball. If you don't have a ball, you can use a block. No big deal. If you use a block, you use the most narrow, right? I call it first setting. Okay. So the ball between the knees, and then you're going to let the knees go side to side. Well, actually, it's kind of the whole leg, right? The leg parts, the hip parts. It's not just knees, but the knees are kind of the guiding, they're steering the direction, right? So as I go across the back of the pelvis, now I get to feel more of the rolling, basically going across the sacrum and the sacroiliac, the whole zone, right? All the parts on the middle. You know, we use the ball to roll the glute and the sacrum. Now we're just using the bolster. You can get the whole surface. So take the time to get that mid body kind of sparked up, some awareness here in the middle. In a few more moments here. And you know what? If this is enjoyable for your back body, I would say stay with it a little longer. Right. So if you're feeling like, oh, this is nice, it's also a deeper um, challenge, I think, for your core muscles when you can do this. And then there might be some parts of you that aren't totally enjoying it, but you can tell that the pressure that's going upstream in the body, that right, the lower belly gets a little challenged, the abdominal organs. Okay, now we're going to try to use that pressure to help us extend, right, the spine and the core. So take the ball out and just roll to your left. And as you go, try to be careful when you're coming down off of the bolster. So you slide down, you probably have a block in your way. Okay, so move the block. So it's going to go to the other side. I'm going to just use both blocks on this one on two different places. So we are going to do a rib rollout before you get all landed in your side sage. So the belt can go aside. I don't know when we'll use that again. And we have a couple blocks. So I'm going to put them all, if I look back on my mat, to the right. And then I'm going to grab my blankets to stack them up. Okay, you probably have your own way of getting these all as high as your bolster. Now, if you have a round bolster, use it. Use it for your side sage. Don't use it for the other sage, the sleeping one, but it's excellent for side sage if you have one. Okay, if not, we'll demonstrate with a flat bolster. Okay, so I got my sand that's on this side, so it's near my left leg. I have a block overhead. I have a block next to my blankets on the right at the lowest setting. Okay. And then I'm just going to stack my thighs. So I'm in kind of this fetal position. And you place the ball to the left rib cage. Okay, it's kind of the rib point, the rib hub right here. And when you lean in, okay, I tend to lean hip. That's like the heavy part, right? That's where I go, those are my bones. I'll just put my weight on there. But trust pushing down onto that ball if you can. Okay, this should not be a tennis ball, please. It's a soft, squishy ball. Okay, so we're going to lower the elbow down on the floor. If you cannot stand your elbow being on the floor, you can put on your blankets. Okay, and then I like to kind of hug the bolster with my left arm. But I'm super short, so I'm not sure that works for everybody's, limb differences, but it works good for me. So I'm going to turn and I'm just massaging in the left rib, little bit of the spaces, not a whole lot of them. It's just a couple inches max that I'm pushing into and flowing across. And it might not feel like a flow, it's going to feel like pressure. Take the last few moments, make sure that when you come down and you turn, you spend time right here where you're twisting and breathing. Okay. And then when you begin to come out of this, you're going to take the ball. And some of you put the ball under your right knee. I know some of you don't. So if you don't put the ball under your knee, you just put it to the side. Make sure you're on that bolster with your side beam. We'll call it the beam. And then stand on that right hip. Okay. All right. Now, when you lean in, you're going to take the top blanket, some of you might not, and fold it up so it's a little bit more support for your neck. Okay. This would be a good pose if you have those special pillows, the neck pillows. I wonder, Mary Alice, that one that you sent that you were showing, I wonder if that would work for this. Huh. Yeah, there's things I've thought about, but I'm going to stay like the classic yoga props. But you'll find that when your arm is reaching, there is resistance, right? Where you have that thick content in the joint and wrapping around it like saran wrap. So give yourself freedom to move your right arm open, or if you feel more comfortable, just place your right hand on the block next to your blankets, or even put it on top of your blanket and make it peaceful. So it doesn't have to be reaching. It could be. You might be curious about that, but it can also be in a restful and also productive state for healing and repair. So resting your head, that could be the challenging part, is how do I let that bowling ball relax? No, you don't need a bowling ball. You just your head is what I mean. Resting your face. Okay, now we're going to work our way towards sleeping sage, but different wave of movement today. So letting your arm move out. Maybe your right arm stretches open the chest. Maybe it just leans to the left, which is fine. And we'll move the sand and we're going to do a little tummy time because, inner work is tummy time work. So we'll come on up. The inner work is twists, which we're going to go to, but I want you to do a little tummy time. So let's turn our bolster lengthwise under our core, like you have a surfboard here. Okay. Your bolster boarding on the bolster. Okay. So come on down. So the hips, I tend to find the legs have to separate just the right amount and the bolster is still touching kind of on my thigh lid. Okay. I don't want the bolster too far down here, but we all have to find what's a comfy placement for this. So feel free to push your blankets away. You don't want them to impede your progress here. So it's all about you and your bolster. Okay. So come on down so the front space is on the bolster. And then you're going to move your forehead on top of a blanket. You already have some here. So place the forehead down. It's going to drop down so there's more flexion in the neck here. Okay, that's not going to be our end goal here is flexion in the neck. So I want you to let your toes hook under. Now, if you've got a wall, that can be a little bit challenging because you have limitation, but toes under, reach the heels just enough, just so you can feel even the front of the knee area, just above the knee. You're trying to pull that upwards, pulling up the quadricep. It's kind of weird to do that when you're face down, isn't it? So feel the legs, which are basically they're kind of in a plank position. I know you're tricking your body to think it's in plank pose, but you got a bolster holding you up. Okay. So let's bring our elbows in so that we can actually use the forearms to be a foundation and bring your head up. Okay. Now relax the knees and feel what that's like when you have the back of your neck. It's lifting a little bit. So take a breath in, belly full. And then as you exhale, you're going to lower back down. Okay, now the shoulders are made kind of scrunch up towards the ears here. I want you to purposely press down through the forearms, or the two arms, that is, and then come up. Okay, now toes under, lift the knees, press the heels back. Slide the hands in under the shoulders so it's no longer elbows down. Elbows are up and squeezing in like you got little T-Rex arms here. And then as I lift my head up, right, I keep that tone in my spine. Right, so this is getting towards a cobra pose. Really strong back line. Okay, now let the knees relax down and I'm going to push into my hands and start to come up. So the front line of my body, my deep front line is trying to stretch. Yeah, I find this to be my posterior, chain, my anti-gravity muscles can feel a little weak here. So I'm going to ask you to try this. If lower back down, grab the therapy ball, place it at the xiphoid, and then lower down. And if you're against the wall, push it, get away from it. So I'm going to move away. I just want to show you where the ball goes. So the ball goes here, matches my shirt. Okay, so try to get this extension of this core line here using this valuable tool. I really like the ball to work on tummy time. Okay, I should go to all those little classes at the library where they have the little ones in there crawling on the floor and give them one of these balls. Okay, all right. So when I lift up, then you can start to strengthen this back line. Right? Even if you just go like hands free. Okay. But feeling what you're waking up in your breathing muscles. This doesn't mean you have to have your arms off the floor. Or your hands. I don't mean that you have to, but you can try lowering your hands down and just notice they're just hands. Right. And feel what's going on in your neck. I want you to really recruit some of these other muscles than tightening your neck. It's just a fact of life that we end up really gripping that area. So let your chin relax. Remember, we had flexed spine in the beginning. The ball is not, it's on the xiphoid. So it might be something you have to move stuff around. Okay. Breathe. Okay. Now, some of you are child pose people. I know some of you love that pose. So elbows in, come up and stretch that back line that you were just working so hard. So as you come back, forehead down on the bolster. Now, this isn't going to work for all of our knees in this group. So some of us are going to go, no, my knees are scared. So if that's not going to work, take a forward fold, okay? Lift up the knees and walk your hands back towards your feet. Take a wide stance. You can go as wide as your mat. Let your spine release and find what's effective for you, whether you clutch the back of your legs, you hold your elbows. I can feel the circulation change in my throat, actually. And let your head nod side to side. So you're either in forward fold there or you're in child's pose. Okay. Forehead down. And just take a few slow breaths. Perfect. Now, those of us in forward fold that are up, we're going to have to come down. So we're going to lower down. Those of us in child's pose coming on up. Hands can be on the floor. Elbows can be on blocks. If this is too much pressure on your wrist, no worries. And then start to move your spine from flexing. So we call this cat cow, but it might be useful for you to just feel that spine and the spaces outside of it to stretch in both directions, the back space and the front space. Alternating that movement through the back of the pelvis, chin towards the chest, and away. Let's do a couple more. Yeah, notice that important moment when you're going from back of the pelvis, trying to feel both sides of it moving under. And then for me, it's the neck movement when I come forward. I'm trying to find the balance of using my arms so I'm not just tightening my neck. Okay. I know it's a work in progress, I think. Okay. So now we're going to go into our side saged prep, but we're going to do the rib rollout on that right rib again. So come on down to your right hip. Grab your blankets, stack them up again. I ended up using my top blanket like this. I folded it in, and I know I'll do that on this side. For me, it's that if my neck is feeling, it's dropping and it's just feeling tighter, then I try to add some more height. I think it's really helpful. I think height is really nice for side sage. Okay. All right. Oh, wait a minute here. Wait a minute. We have to go back. I missed it. I messed up. Okay. We got to go to the sleeping sage on side one. We didn't do it. Right? We didn't do it. Mimi's already ready. She's like, wait a minute here. Okay, we have to do the sleeping sage on side one. So all I want you to do is pivot your bolster up on the blankets like this. This will be easy. If you already have them folded up, just pivot because I did intend to do this. Okay, so, and I want to make sure I do it the way I intended. So left hip is next to the bolster. I think it's easy to change it up. And you're going to take that twist. This is so delightful to do. If you want your blanket on top, add it. If you're like, oh, I always like it like this, which I do, and then pull that bolster in, and you can hug your bolster, but probably it's not easy to do the hug unless you have more height under it. Okay. So if you can bring your arms to stretch open, let your shoulders on the back line surrender. Okay. So the right thigh can stretch back. After doing that tummy time, it might feel kind of nice for those side omels to get a little reach in the hip. Okay. So the arms are resting our back muscles. Okay, so we're on the left hip. If you happen to be on the right hip right now, when we go to second side, we'll do them both we'll do them both seamlessly today on the second side. We just want to do a little tummy time in between. Okay, so you might feel some smaller muscle groups in the abdominals that are feeling some squeezing, some pressure filling up. So be sure on the exhale to let your body weight relax. Okay, now as you slide the hands in, okay, now this time instead of going straight down to that tummy time, since we're twisting here, we're going to let the abdominals just relax and open between the twist sides. So as we come up, we're going to pivot and just turn so we're lying on our back. Now, if lying on your back with the bolster like this ain't going to work, you can turn the bolster horizontal across, but maybe give this a try for it'll be a few moments. So letting the abdominals, not necessarily the place of connection at the hip, right, the inner hip, but abdominally from that twist, just let the navel center relax, expand, and relax. So feel that momentum with the belly movement. That's important after the twist, all the rotations that we've been kind of playing with from the inversions and then this most recent. Okay, now we're going to pivot. So we're going to shift our weight on the right hip now. We're going to go there. Okay. All right, finally. Okay, so pivot your bolster. If you got a round one, use it. All right. And then take the blankets so they're high enough up. And I'm going to put a block next to my blankets and one on the other side overhead. And then place the ball at the right rib. Now, should it be towards the front? I would say right where it's going to round into your across. So you don't want it to go to the front of the belly. So stack the thighs and then lean into that right elbow and feel that rotation, that movement. Turning, breathing. Now, if you're kind of holding your breath during this and just kind of fascinated at the connection of that deep touch, because the ball interacts with the skin and into the breathing muscles, right? So, you want to create this kind of hearty, strong breathing tone in the body. So, part of it's the touch with the ball. And then next time you come down, my elbow's on the floor. I'm going to just scoop in and turn and kind of slide my ribs to the right. And then come up, grab the ball, place it under the left knee. And then I'm going to come in. So I'm going to pull that bolster right next to me, put my ribs on the side, and then grab the sandbag to the left hip. So as you're motioning in your limbs, right, even though the ones that seem to be interactive right now, which is the upper extremities, the lower has a huge impact. What I like to think of lately in practice is the impact it has on my on a lot of the systems in the body, but also in the visceral, but then what you feel kind of topically in the body, right? What you can feel with the skin moving. So when you're reaching, we'll call it the dermal neural, which just means skin. But when you're reaching, you might touch to the block. You might decide, no, I like this, the more soothing version with my left hand on the block on my blanket. This to me is it's still achieving what my focus is on my side body, but it's a little more calming. Okay, but they're both good. And so if you like the big reach, if you want to bend your elbow and kind of feel where across the shoulder is softening, go for that. And just allow the weight of your head to relax and breathe. Just sense the balance of your side body. If it's too much pressure on this hip more than the other, remember what you need to do is have more padding, right? You can have an extra mat, you can have an extra towel on top. It is helpful. But let the weight of your head relax. You know, interesting on this side, we can just trace the outline from the side body long into the side body and gentle twist coming up. So the arm can stay resting on the block. It could be overhead or down next to the side. Take the last few moments in this shape. Okay, now let's take the neck into a different direction a little bit slightly. So I'll move the sand off and then I'll just continue. I'll take the ball out from under the knee. And then as I pivot to my twist, I'm going to move. I like a blanket under and a blanket on top. I actually kind of like that time we had the blanket here and then on the floor, right? So if you're like, well, I missed that. We were doing that for a few months. You can always come back to that. Yep, I started that when I started my new training, but I don't know. Sometimes I go back to this. It's good to vary it up and see what did you miss out of having the blanket under your hip. What do you like about this? Does it feel more input into the bones? Because there's less padding. It's okay. So hands down, and then try to lead from your chest, which I think is really challenging because I'm so used to wearing out my extremities. So as I lead from my core, okay, I'm going to stretch my abdominals up and then I'm going to turn. Now, again, if you need more height under your bolster, you just put a block under it. It's very, very easy to do that. And then your head turns. I generally put the blanket just at the hairline. I kind of like that input for my neck. Some of you pull the blanket under your neck and you like that better. So it's up to you. It might be a little more soft for the neck if your blanket's further down the neck. Okay. So you kind of feel you can touch to your upper spine spaces and the neck and just feel the difference with the blanket down a little bit and the blanket up. Should feel good for you. Okay, not for what the teacher is doing, right? So you be the decider, you're the teacher, and let the spine feel when it's rotating in the middle and not taking out the little bit of arch in your lumbar, right? So my right leg is close to my bolster right? It's bending. I have a little pocket of space here between my right hip and the bolster, a little space, little gap. And that is going to help you create that little bit of curve in the lumbar. Okay. So feeling that reach, you're always welcome to come up and come back down if you want to reset. And just resting the face, the brain. Okay, now take the hands under the shoulders. Bring your elbows in by the sides a little bit. And then as you come up, now we're going to turn the bolster across and we'll take a seat on it. So bolster on the mat across horizontal, take a seat on the bolster and take what's kind of a natural response here would be a little cobbler pose. So soles of the feet together, knees apart. And you can put blocks under the legs. I actually think I want some blocks under my legs on this one. Okay. So if you're comfy without them, not to say that it's a better pose. It's like you kind of have spent a lot of time probably minus the blocks in a seated forward fold, but sometimes when you add them in, it makes the lift in my sides better, right? So it's like this, I kind of slouch. And with I have the blocks, I don't know. I think it's better. It's feeling better. So sand, just push it down, place it across the feet. Okay. Okay. And once you're sanded here, we're going to be working our way through some these are more advanced poses, right? Seated field is always more challenging. And then we'll go to our back and massage the back line. That'll feel super good in the final spinal. But take a moment here, kind of feeling your hands to the thighs, noticing without kind of looking. What's kind of interesting is you can't really see your spine. You can't see your back line. Okay, but feel with the weight into your seat. Okay, now that we are coming back to integration, right? Structurally, we're now kind of going back to some symmetry. So when we're here, I want you to lift the shoulders towards the ears. So it's just a shrug and then roll them back and take a few of those, even if it's a little crunchy, right? Don't let that stop you from moving, right? That's just part of the aging process for some of us. So we're going up with the shoulders and it maybe feels like, oh, that's a little release there. Okay. Okay, now lean forward at the hinge of your hips. Okay, bring your hands back to your bolster and try to keep the hands back so that you can maintain that strength through your spine. Okay, now come up. So think chin gently lifting. You're going to turn to your right, bring your left hand to your right knee. I would say keep it really mild, not an aggressive twist at all, just a mild rotation, right? Trying to open up the spaces, no floppy disks. Okay, and now I like a little arm awareness here. So right arm over left. So you're going to give yourself a hug. And then arms are going to clash. So elbows down towards each other. So it's just crossing like this. You don't have to twist this direction. But then you're going to intertwine the arms. We call this eagle pose. And then we lift the elbows up, at least eagle arms. The legs are not an eagle. Lift the elbows up. Okay, so just the best that you can. Okay, now lean forwards. So really getting some stretch of the inner hip. Breathe. If this bugs your knees, I would say make sure you got plenty of block under your thighs. You can also add blankets, more padding. You can go minus the sandbag. You can take the feet a little bit further out if you don't use the sand, if it's too much on the knee pressure, and then come up. But we are trying to get some circulation in the knees here as well. So turn to your left. You're going to bring your right hand to your left knee and you're going to rotate. Now, I had my hand on the bolster last time, but it feels better behind me. So you're going to, try to remember, did I have my hand here? Was it back here? Was it around my waist? They're all correct. So as you're rotating, just feel movement in the rib cage. Remember to breathe because it only will help. And then bring the left arm across. Give yourself like a hug here, right? Pretend. And then intertwine the arms and bring them up. So when I'm moving my arms in this direction and lifting, it's kind of interesting in your back space. Some people lean in, some people find it's impossible, so they give themselves a hug instead. But trying to get some good circulation in your arms, your shoulders, just your wrists. I mean, it's a good one in general. You don't have to have your palms pushing. You don't have to have your arms to the ceiling. Just get the best that you can. Be curious about the circulation in the arms anyway. We're so curious about the legs and the hips, but arms are important too. Arms are for hugging. Okay. All right. Now, without caving in, this can happen. The caving of the shoulders, it can happen. So relax that position with the arms, unwind, roll the shoulders back. Okay, trace the awareness from your hips to your knees to your feet for just a second there. And then bring the knees to point up, slide the blocks out. Okay, now you're going to kind of Humpty Dumpty back. I've done a Humpty Dumpty on this a few times. So drop back off your bolster. Carefully push the bolster forward. Scoot, scoot with your bolster. You want a flat bolster for this one, not a round. Now, when you come back carefully on your forearms, head is on the one maximum blanket, no more than one. Okay. Now let's get our ball. Oh, that's across the room, huh? And get a feeling here with your knees drawing in just the right amount. So this is going to be the motion you go into after the bridge. So I want you to decide, okay, this is about it. I can kind of swivel on my tail. Okay. You don't have to have your feet on the bolster to go up and bridge. Some people don't like that. I know. I saw some people say, I like my feet on the floor. So I like them on the bolster because when I get my hips up, I go higher on my spine when I massage back. This blanket's too much under my head right now, too much flexion. And then I lower down. So you're the decider. Do I have a blanket under my head or do I not? Okay. So just notice here. So when I push into my feet, it could be on the floor, it could be feet on the bolster. But when I lift my hips up, yeah, I feel this in my shoulders a little bit when I go back because they're sort of tight right now. And then I lower down. Okay. Just depends on what you've been up to, right? So make sure your feet are supported on that bolster. If you need to scoot down, lifting and just the right amount. I know it's important to get your hips up pretty high, but you've got to find that where do you feel kind of a good equilibrium from one hip to the next. Sometimes you got one side that's sort of having a challenge. So you're trying to create symmetry right now. It's lifting up. Last one there. Okay, now when you come down, I want you to bring your knees towards the chest, if possible, without holding your legs. So you can bring your arms down and then the knees in. Okay, and I wonder if it's the same degree of flexion you did earlier, just moments ago. Maybe it's a little bit closer in after all that work, even though it wasn't a lot of work, but it was a little bit of work to get there, to get that hinge, that lubricating the joint. Okay, so take the ball. We're going to bring our feet down to the bolster. And then as I push, I want to have just the right amount of moving the tailbone under to roll the ball to the back of the pelvis, tailbone. And then I rest down. Now I'm not scooping my tailbone under when I'm on the ball. That's kind of important, don't you think? Because otherwise you're kind of tightening. It's not like it's the worst thing in the world for your pelvic organs, but you want to find some freedom here, pelvic floor wise. So just let the hips go side to side, wagging your tail. Your arms could be close by the sides, they could be out to goalpost. Yeah, be sure you can kind of harvest that support in the core vine. If your arms are too splayed out, you might just kind of feel, you might feel good, you might like that, but sometimes getting a little closer to center can feel supportive and foundational for the movement. So feel the hips moving side to side. Don't get too lost in it, right? Stay central station. Okay, and you might feel, oh, that glute wants a little bit of pressure. So then, first thing, maybe right ankle to left knee, and then put the ball to the right rear, right bullseye in the center of the right glute area. And then you can uncross the right foot from the left knee and rub across the right glute zone. So you're going from the buttock muscles, right? It's right in the terrain between the tailbone and the hip. So that's the whole terrain you get a glide on. And the bigger ball versus a tennis ball is really nice because you get a whole lot of surface that you get to massage. I kind of like these better than the foam roller because the roller's like, well, again, it's not a responsive surface, right? Like a squishy ball is. Doesn't really respond with your skin, and changing the tone and also the lymph work you get by having something that's squishy and soothing. Okay, right on that dermal layer here. Okay. All right. Now, one thing we know when we get older is what is it? Collagen one gets stronger, so you could get stiffer, tighter. Right? That actually develops right when we get older. So, just getting this massage is going to feel good. Yeah, unfortunately, some things like that happen. So, we want to feel like, oh, I can kind of lubricate the tissue. It helps with the turnover in the tissues, right? When we're massaging. Okay. And it's a little bit more global than you think, even though it's one spot, one area. It affects the lymph system, right? The body's basically transportation system for your immune system. So take the ball out of that right side. And then I just sometimes like to get the ball under by swishing the knees to the side. So you could do windshield wiper for a few moments, feet on the bolster, and then take the ball when you're ready to the left glute and then bring the knees to point up and you're going to glide across. Okay. So feel the hip glide side to side, pressing and moving. And there really is a focus here. I tend to focus from the bones because I can feel the hook on the bone, right? With the ball, it kind of hooks into those spots. You can feel that drive it. But you want to kind of learn a bit about your muscle and the pressures. It's complicated to go with what feels good. Okay. Just feeling what you can with the movement, that texturizing. If you prefer the foot crossing to the right knee, that's great. You can definitely do that. You don't have to have your feet on the bolster. You can have one foot up and one foot down or move it around. Okay. And once you're gliding across, do a few more glides. You can go slow or fast. It's kind of nice to do it all. This side to me felt a little bit like smaller range or like wasn't getting as quite wide of a reach. So, noticing these differences when you get to your restorative pose. Okay. I really like a blanket to come in for this final part. I definitely like a little bit of height under my head. You might notice that it's helpful. And then when you lower down to the back of the pelvis, move the ball out so that you can actually get some feedback in your rear, right? The knees moving side to side. You're moving across the glutes. So that's the buttock muscles, not just on the tailbone, the knees swish side to side. And then you're going to take the bolster with your feet and move it to the right. Carefully grab it with your hand because that's probably the easier maneuvering handle, right? To grab the handle of the bolster. And then let's kick the left leg only on top of the bolster. So the right leg, just like we did earlier. A while ago, we had the leg crossovers. So the left leg is over to the bolster. Now you can place the ball at the back of the pelvis, and you certainly could add your sand here on the outer left thigh. It's up to you, right? If you decide, I don't know if I want that sandbag there, you might keep it as is or add the sand and see what that feedback is in your hip awareness. Like it might feel not necessarily that it's changing the effectiveness of the position you're in, but it's grounding, it's weight bearing. That can feel good too. And it sometimes doesn't. Okay, so you have to really be with yourself right now in the moment. I'm pushing my bolster downstream a little bit because I like how that strengthens in my lower abdominals. But you don't have to. You might pull your bolster up, right? If you've got scar tissue or just it just doesn't feel comfy, then probably listen to yourself first. You can put your hand on the left side of the abdominals towards the organs there. They're all organs in there, but just feeling that massage in there, or arms both out to the sides. Perfectly comfortable as well. Okay, now feeling that right hip, the one on the ground, relaxing. So the right knee is bending. Okay. And that helps you get that range of motion in your hip, right? When the bottom hip, the knee attached to it is bending. So you're shifting the direction, right? That's the key. So because most of the day we're kind of in this box, right? Our legs go forward. We don't get a really good way to kind of wash through these tissues. So that's why I think the practices are good. Okay, we can get our exercise regimen in, but it's only so many directions. So when you take the sand off, we don't want to have any sand on when we take ourselves out of the twist. So we're going to move the ball and go slow. So take the knees back. Remember, they can go downwards. They don't want to go into your chest because that kind of shocks the sacrum. So we just plant the back of the pelvis carefully. We could do windshield wiper. That's fine. And you can also just relax the knees together as you're getting the bolster to the second side in constructive rest. This is a great one too. And then you can feel both points of the right of the sacrum, the sacroiliac. You can kind of feel those points here when the knees point in. All right, so bolster to the left. I'm going to push into my feet and move my hips to the right. And then I'm going to bend the left knee. So it just kind of touches to the bolster, but it's not on top of it. Okay. Then swing the right leg over to the bolster and get the ball. And not required to use a ball. Some people aren't really liking the ball on this one some days. So add it if it feels like a little bit of an anchor. And then if the sandbag is appropriate for you on this side, get it onto the core first and you can kind of roll it down. And just push it down across the side of that right thigh. Okay. Stretch the right arm open. Feel that reach in the chest. Feel your head roll to the right. And breathe. And just feel where the back of the pelvis is receiving. There's definitely messages in the hip, There's messages up, the back line, the side. I mean, all the areas, anytime we're doing a twist, it's kind of deep inner work. Try to unclench, basically relax your grip on areas that are tightening up. Okay, now when you begin to come out, we're going to keep that motion to the right leg is reaching to the left. We're kind of onto that left hip. So ball goes aside and the sand. And I'm going to teach from doing legs up the wall, or if you want to do bolster bench, legs up the bolster bench, that's fine. But you can always do legs up the wall with a blanket, not a bolster. So let me show that just in case you want that option. So come on up. Okay, so you could use one blanket since it's not as high as the bolster. Some people find the bolster is just a bit. I like the bolster because I can move it away from the wall easily. Right, the blanket it's like it's just I fumble with it. So you can use the blanket so there's a little gap between the wall and my blanket edge, just a little bit. So if you're not so happy with the bolster, you can try with the blanket. All right, because I never show this, so why not show it? So if you have an eye pillow, you want that. You only need your sandbag, and if you are using the bolster, you would have a blanket under your head as well. If your blanket focus, you're going to be blanket, okay, like so, right? So this is an option for those that are like, the bolster is just too hard to get upside down on. Okay, it's not always that. Sometimes it's the back doesn't like it. It feels too much pressure. So I'm going to sit on the edge of the blanket, and then I'm going to roll to come up. And you might go, well, that's just not enough, but actually it feels kind of nice. So it's good to change it up. Although I think if you've been using the bolster for so long, you're going to feel like something's missing. You might feel like, oh, I need a little bit more oomph. But if it's too much, then the blanket's going to be like a godsend, like, oh, this is so nice. I didn't like it. Okay. Now, if I'm using the blanket, what I like about this that's different is I could do like a cobbler's pose. I can also do that pose where we do legs up and out, the leg float. I know some of you are going to put a sandbag on your feet, so you go for it. But this is the options, right? If I don't want to use the sand on my feet, I could do kind of the leg float like this. So if you've been told that forward folds are good for you, some of us it's true, right? This might feel better because the back line gets this interesting stretch. So you could try the leg float with the bolster as well. Okay, just variety. And what's nice about this is keep in mind when we're in our final shape, which is our, I would call this our shavasana of sorts. We don't want the leg tension to really get too much, right? So the sand does add a little pressure. Some of us we can do it with confidence, and we've done it before, so we can actually achieve that sense of calm. Some of us, our muscle tension's too much, so this is, a little bit more relaxing. I'm not holding myself up. I'm letting the belt hold me. I don't have to do any work. It's really nice. So if you have an eye pillow, maybe across your eyes, you're the decider. Let's say you're using the belt at your feet, whether you got a bolster under you or not, you might find, oh, well, now I could use my sandbag on my core, right? So you can have your sandbag from your heart to your belly. You have your sandbag across your ribs. You can change it up a little bit. If you're like, oh, I'm going to change this up today. I'm going to use a blanket. I'm going to use a belt. Still going to get upside down. Okay. All right. So with the spine, kind of taking a load off the spine pressure with the head on top, we can let the eyes just drop in to the brain and just feel ourselves breathing. And just notice the movement and the pace of the breath. Make any changes you need. If you need to be without the sand or start using the belt for this, just for today, you can always change it up, even right now. The reason we don't want a lot of muscle tension in the legs in our last pose is we're actually trying to stimulate the lymph drainage, right? So for that to be stimulated, you don't want a lot of tension. You want just the circulation event to happen, reversing the flow in the leg pits, the groins, back to the abdominal organs and the heart, all the way back towards the throat. Next time you're breathing within, filter through the nose and feel the belly fill up, right? If you want to move the sand, if you have it on the core, it might feel a little bit easier. And as you exhale, feel the belly relax. So it's like you're filling it up like a balloon and using your breath pace to induce calm in the body. Okay, now bending your knees. If you got sand, you're going to have to carefully move your feet off the wall and then take the sand off. And you can come back up for a moment. And those of us with our legs lifted with the belt, you're going to bend the knees and then reach up to the belt, slide the feet together. And actually, you could just unbuckle it so you don't have to do any more hinging at the knees right here. Just watch out that it doesn't hit you in the face. Okay. All right. Now, with the legs away from the wall, feel the back of the pelvis have a little bit of a gap. Line the gap. And then bend the knees. And then as you roll to a side, you can go a little side to side so you even it out, right to left. And as you go to one side, use your arm feeling, not just the hands, but I roll from my shoulder and then I push up. I know I kind of over effort it still. I'm trying to find the right balance with that, but maybe one day it'll arrive. Okay. If I'm lucky, find your sitting bones support, find the lift of your neck and take a moment, cervical spine, upper spine, chin lifts, give yourself a little space from the wall, and then chin lowers and feel this fluidity in the neck going up. We haven't been sitting a lot in this class. We've been on our back, on our side, and face down. So feel the movement of the cervical vertebrae. And then just let your head gently tip to one side, so ear towards the shoulder, just a gentle tip. And then to the other side, go slow. Happy necks. And then come back center. Bring your hands up to join, palms to palms, so we can find that focus of awareness together, breathing and wellness. Take a slow breath in, indeed. And then as we exhale,